Hello everyone, my name is Adam Wojtakowski from the Sport Advisory team of PwC Hungary. In cooperation with my colleague Balázs Dobosi, we would like to share some information with you about our ongoing project with the Hungarian Football Academy, focusing on data-based injury prediction. But before we jump into the content, we would like to thank the conference organizers for the invitation and for this great opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here and to present our ideas in this highly professional environment. So as for the agenda, we would like to divide our presentation into three main parts. After a brief introduction, we would like to present the initial goal of our project and show what kind of data sources we used, what methodology we followed, and how the final dashboard looks like. And last but not least, we would like to walk you through our proposals and ideas how this could be implemented in the future as a solution in ice hockey. So Balázs and I are working for the PwC Sport Advisory team. Technically speaking, we are economists, but besides our job, Balázs is a former hockey player, and I was playing football for 16 years. Our company is one of the big four audit companies, and here in Budapest, we have a team focusing on sport business consultancy and sport analytic topics. We are working for almost all sport federations here in Hungary and support them in a wide variety of projects, including data analytics. Our data scientist team involves approximately 20 people, and in cooperation with them, we work on an injury prediction model for a Hungarian Football Academy. So firstly, what was the initial idea and the primary goal with this project? I would start with that existing academic research studies mainly focus on specific factors of injuries. Our initial hypothesis was that injury risks are influenced by several different factors simultaneously, and historical data can be used to determine these factors and their extent of contribution to the injury. So we have committed ourselves to creating and implementing a multidimensional approach to predict the likelihood of non-contact injuries. As a result, we are aimed at providing a simple and tangible guidance to a coaching staff in planning weekly training workouts. But what kind of data did we use? In Hungary, the number one sport is indisputably football. Every football academy here needs to use the same ERP system, and every football academy has to follow a centralized measurement protocol issued by the National Methodological Center. And basically every elite team uses the Catapult system and other video analytic tools. So you can find enough data sets in football. And unfortunately, this is not true for ice hockey in Hungary. So for the model, we could use a lot of types of data. Our measurements range from biological to physiological data, including anthropometry, body composition data, sprint and strength test results, or spiroergometry data. Catapult system provided the biggest amount of information besides the collected medical and orthopometric data, but other external data sources like historical injury samples were collected and utilized. After having centralized all these different data sets into a common database, we created 31 different models with decision tree, random forest, and logarithmic regression methods. The best test results were shown by a random forest model, which is currently being utilized. And as a result, we have identified most influential factors of the non-contact injuries. For example, the total player load in the last 14 days or the number of short sprints was one of these. Based on these correlations and the player's current stats and measurements, we calculated an overall injury risk score for every player. and these scores are being updated on daily basis. 3 different dashboards have been created to serve as a user interface. One is for the head coaches and academy leaders to supervise the current injury risk of the squad. The second one is for fitness coaches to be able to track the player load related data and how it influences the injury risk. The third is for rehabilitation team to monitor the recovery process of the injured player.
Hi everyone, as Adam mentioned, my name is Balázs and I'm a senior consultant at PwC. And I was also a hockey player for many years, as Adam mentioned, and because of that I am well aware of how an injury can hold back a career, maybe in the most important years when we are talking about development. And we are also aware of how challenging this sport is when it comes to injuries, considering, for example, the complexity of the game. This complexity is also reflected when we are talking about injuries. Maybe one of the biggest challenges in ice hockey currently when we try to predict the injury risk is the fact that this sport is primarily a contact sport. That means also more contact injuries, which are basically the hardest ones for an AI to elaborate and do analysis. Another big challenge compared to football, for example, is that our sport is still lacking sufficient amount of data. There were many pilot projects in this topic, and usually the conclusion is that the models are not relevantly better at predicting injuries than selection is. One reason for that is that the analysis do not have enough variables, and that comes from the previously mentioned maturity problem. And why this is important is because there might be potential variables with high explanatory power that we still don't measure and miss from the analysis. Another problem can be that the sample is not big enough, meaning that usually no more than one or a few teams' data was collected. And if we would have more players, segmentation between player types based on, for example, position, age, weight, or other physical factors could also be a conceivable option. So this can further refine the accuracy of the injury risk estimate, thereby increasingly reducing performance loss to avoid injuries. The examples Adam mentioned could all be potential use cases in ice hockey as well. Either we can talk about decision making through monitoring training load of players, creating daily, monthly reports, or even supporting the rehabilitation procedure of players. So overall, the common goal is to be able to support coaches to make the right decisions. And in order to reach the wanted outcome, what we see as a potential approach at the moment is to clearly identify or define a measurement strategy involving as many stakeholders as we can. And that could be ideally facilitated by a league or from the side of a federation, and would consist of the following steps that you can see down below. So as a first step, organizing workshops with professionals to define these measurement goals is an essential first step. And this usually doesn't get enough attention from clubs and federations. So if we do not know whether we would like to benchmark our players to other top players or prevent injuries, we simply won't be able to follow an efficient methodology. As we start to measure sometimes irrelevant data while burning our human and financial resources. So if we know our goals with measurements, we can list all the relevant variables that are needed to be measured in different age groups and disciplines. And after that, it is also really important to decide the exact measurement methodology, which helps us to have homogeneous data which of course is an essential criteria to have a powerful analysis regarding injuries. Last but not least, stakeholders need to have a clear plan on how and when the measurements will take place. So, for example, will it be coordinated centrally or locally? Which system do we use to collect the data? These are just examples for questions that are not obvious and need to be elaborated in the future. So as you probably know, injury prediction is only one of the many potential use cases that ice hockey could benefit from regarding data analysis. There are more areas to be explored, just like helping players and coaches decide what the most ideal position for a player could be, what potential a player has for the future to make scouting easier for teams, or even time and calculate when and how a player could reach the best performance during the season. So overall, this is a really fascinating topic. And we believe that there are huge opportunities in this area when we are talking about ice hockey and not only football. So thank you for your attention, and we are happy to get questions regarding our presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Balázs and Adam. I understood that you're having a little trouble with the computers. Hopefully we can get one or at least of you on the line. Autumn, are you there? Adam, are you there? Oh, Balázs on as well. You're both there. Thank you for the presentation. My first question is this analysis of a player or a person, is it more based for them, for each individual athlete to improve, or is it more for the coaching staff to make choices on who to play at what time of the game or the season, injury risk? Do both parties, the coaching staff and the player, the athlete, get the same information? We can't hear you, Adam. I don't know if that's our issues or your issue.
Now?
Now I hear you a little bit better, but I have to talk a little bit louder, I think.
Okay, I tried my best.
Perfect.
So it's mostly for the training coaches and mostly for the staff and not for the players. And actually, this kind of models and this model particularly is kind of the voice of the players, because let's take myself as a good example. I played football for 16 years, and I never indicate to the coaches that I'm tired or it's too much for me. And if the coaches checking this kind of models constantly on daily basis, it can indicate themselves that something strange or something wrong with that player. So probably the training is too much for them. And if there is a too high score of or likelihood of the injury, they can consult that particular player. That is there any trouble? How do you feel yourself? And they can make the decision easily together that you need to take some days off, or you need to take a rest a little bit, and you can continue. Because the young players, of course, considering myself, I also did the same every case, is that I wanted to be in a starting 11, and I never indicate that I'm tired or I have some trouble with my stamina.
So what you're saying is that the information will help the coaches to make better decisions, even though that the players aren't being fully, I don't want to say honest, but not being fully open with the coaching staff in certain situations.
Exactly.
Do you feel like you have that kind of relationship between most coaches and players that they allow them to as we discussed earlier, with a filter, so the communication between the coaching staff and the players can work from the data that you've chosen? Do you feel that the coaches feel comfortable with that?
Not currently. I mean, they are trying to trust the data, and they are trying to use the data nowadays in Hungary. I'm talking about the Hungary and the football sector. I don't know how it is in the Scandinavian countries or in ice hockey, but they are a little bit skeptic about the data. But the data can indicate something, and they can consult with the player. So it could be an early warning system.
Adam, thank you so much for being with us here in your presentation. Thank you again for being here.